Welcome to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette
and Sister Sophia.
Our show is designed to help you learn more about emotional, mental, and spiritual health.
Let's talk. Welcome to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia. This show is designed to provide wise counsel for your emotional, mental, and spiritual health concerns. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I am Sophia Avery, a Christian therapist and owner of Christian Talk Therapy.
And I am Dr. Suzette Stokes-Sims. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I'm the owner and director of Dayspring Counseling Services.
We are seasoned professionals in the counseling field, and we're using this radio show as a means of reaching the community with information that will help you enjoy happier, healthier relationships with others and mature in your faith. Today's show is about accepting reality. We're really going to tear into this topic, so get your pen and paper ready to take notes. Now, last week, Suzette and I spoke about happiness and joy, and we'll have that program available for you online soon on our Facebook page. If you are new to our listening program, you can reach us on facebook.com/Philly Talk Show.
We would love to hear from you.
We also have our first show up on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, search for Philly Talk Show, or you can search for How's That Working For You, and you'll find our first show there on forgiveness. If you're near a computer right now, log on. We'll be able to interact with you from time to time during the show, and we would love to hear from you. If you are able or interested in leaving your comments or feedback during the show, we would love to have that, and we can read them online and answer your questions. So please give us a call when you have a chance. If you're thinking about a topic that we covered in the last few weeks, which was forgiveness, joy and happiness for Christians, and hurts that cause us emotional pain. If you have any questions or comments from our last 3 weeks, please feel free to call us here at the radio station. Our call number is 610-277-9449, or anywhere in the country, you can reach us at 1-800-887-9627. Now let's get into our topic for today, accepting reality.
Now, I also want to mention, though, that you guys can also listen to us online. Like, I know some folks have trouble. They'll try to tune in the radio and say, oh my gosh, I wasn't able to get it. Well, you know what? You can go right to mygospelhighway11.com, and you have an ability to listen to us there as well. And also, if you don't have a phone, you also have an ability to contact us on Facebook, just like Sophia had mentioned.
Yes, and I hope you will. We're excited today because this is our first live show, so we're happy to be here to answer your questions or accept your comments. Please feel free to call whenever you have something on your heart or mind.
Right, 610-277-9449. Again, 610-277-9449, or 1-800-887-9627, and you can ask us anything.
Amen. So, Suzette, when
Yes.
you think about accepting reality, what comes to mind for you?
You know what? For me, I guess as I reflect on my life, I think about more about how do I accept those things that maybe I wasn't able to get, those things that I wanted, those things I desired, those things that I prayed for. So when I think about accepting reality, I think about how do I accept and deal with and cope with maybe those things in life that I don't feel very happy about.
Right. And I'm thinking, I actually was talking to a friend, and we were both kind of approaching the age of 50. And for me, that's almost unbelievable. It seems surreal. How can I be possibly 50 years old when I was just 20? Yesterday, right? I was 20. And I'm thinking, am I in total denial? Because I just cannot imagine that I might be almost 50. So I might have a problem accepting reality. Maybe I need to listen to my own show
Maybe. But I remember when I turned 30 and I was so upset. I was very sad. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not 29 anymore, right? I'm leaving my 20s. So, yeah, there's something about age and there's something about accepting that place in life and where you are, and also reflecting back on, what have I not accomplished that I thought I would have had done by now, like when it relates to age, that does set us up to then feel that sense of or blah about that new part of our life that we're entering into.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's a change, I think. The change that constantly is going on, whether we like it or not, is probably the first thing about accepting reality that makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Do we accept change well?
Right. But you know what? I think one of the first things that we were, talking about in terms of accepting reality is just the idea of accepting what God's answers are, right? Like, is it yes, is it no, or is it maybe?
Uh-oh. Don't start with that. Accepting God's will is a stumbling block for many a Christian. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good place for us to start.
Yeah.
What do we do when God says, yes, daughter, yes, son, I want you to go forth into the world and do my will, but what if it's not something we want to do?
You mean like if it's, well, yes, you need to do that thing that you prayed about, that you told me to tell you whether or not you should do it. And yes, I do think you should do it. You mean like when you're holding out and hoping the answer is no?
Yep, that way. Or either kind of like Jonah when he didn't want to he didn't want to go to Nineveh. I don't want to go to Nineveh, Lord. And he started running from his call. How many of us are running from our call?
And that reminds me, there was someone once that I was working with, and we were talking about career issues. And one of the things that he said to me was, well, no, I haven't prayed about what I should do, because what if God tells me I'm supposed to be a garbage man? And that's not a slam against people who are in sanitation, but truly that was his fear, that what if God tells me to do something that I don't really want to do?
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of a lot of people's biggest fear is, we all think, okay, if I pray about something and God gives me a yes, then it's cool. I like it when God gives me what I want. Mm-hmm. But what if God wants you to do something that you don't necessarily want to do? Mm-hmm. How do we accept that reality? How do we accept the call? How do we accept the thing that he needs us to do when it's not in line? Like, I want to be in business and make $1 million a year. Mm-hmm. Or what if God wants you to be a missionary and go over to Africa and work for free and live in the bush and, work with orphans?
Yeah, what if that were the case? And so I think what you're talking about, though, leads us to talk a little bit about, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later, just the idea of, well, what is it that we're praying for, right? Are we praying that God's will be done in our life, or are we praying that our will be done in our life? Are we willing to accept God's will? Like, many of us talk a lot about, yes, I want his will for my life because I trust him and I know that he knows the best for me. But once it gets revealed, we then get scared. And like you had mentioned about Jonah, we then run away and we try to occupy ourselves with something else. And we let fear take over, or we refuse to accept whatever that place is in our life. And if it's not what we really wanted at all.
Exactly. And we get it to a dangerous place, because at that point we're out of the will of God. But if we don't want the will of God, where does that leave you? Out and alone somewhere doing something that's probably pulling you further away from the covering of God than bringing you closer.
Right.
Like if God called you to preach and you never saw yourself, don't want to be a pastor in charge of a church. But there are many other ways to preach. You don't necessarily have to be a pastor in front of a church. But your fear of what that looks like, or maybe your fear of not being good enough to be a preacher or a pastor of a church, causes you to run. Mm-hmm. So you don't accept your reality. I won't accept it. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to buy a bar and I'm going to sell drinks. Because most times we run as far away from the thing God called us to as we can, right?
Yep, that's true.
So in trying to avoid your calling, you run into something that probably pulls you into the dark place.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of what we're talking about when we talk about, well, what if God says yes? Sounds like we're talking a lot about, well, what if God is saying no to what we want? Because I think when God says yes, we are thrilled. We are just like, yes, God, you answered my prayer, right? And we keep in mind what God says about, ask and it'll be given to you. Seek and you'll find. Knock and I'll answer, right? And the door will be opened, or you pray in Jesus' name, right? And so you do these things, and then that becomes confirmation that, yes, God is listening. God loves me. But we don't always accept that when he says no, that he is still listening and he does still love us. It's just maybe not what his will is for us.
Right. And the no is a deep topic that causes a lot of people pain. And, even, yes, clearly getting a yes from God can cause pain, because a lot of times in our group Great Expectations, my girls say, well, what if God gives me a husband that I'm not attracted to? So he says yes to marriage, but I don't like who he picked for me. What do I do then? I think we do. We get into our will. If God gives you something, he loves you. You're his child. And as the word says, just like any father, he wants to give us his best. Mm-hmm. Why would God give you something that's not good for you? Yeah, he may not be tall, dark, and handsome. Maybe he's something different, light, bright, and beautiful.
Maybe a little shorter than you.
Right. But he may be the biggest blessing to your life that you ever imagined. And you couldn't imagine having a life without this person.
Exactly. And I think, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, too, of just how God knows what it is that he has in store for us and how it is that we can come to accept what our reality is. Right.
If you're listening and you'd like to call with a comment or a question, we would be glad to have you on the air at 610-277-9449 or around the country, 1-800-887-9627. If you are listening online, I hope you will go to our Facebook page. All you have to do is type in facebook.com/Philly Talk Show, and we would love to have your questions and comments. You are listening to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia. We are live on the air on Gospel Highway 11. We will be right back after this break, and we will tackle the dreaded answer that we hate to get from God, which is no. Join us. We'll be right back.
Do you have a child or relative preparing for their junior or senior prom this year? If so, wouldn't you like to have photos that would last a lifetime of that event? While you're shopping for your daughter's dress and shoes or your son's suit, while you're preparing the menu and booking their limo reservations, why not consider having a professional photographer photograph that special day? With TrueVine Photography's pre-prom packages, you'll be able to recall that day weeks, months, and even years from now with one of their professional hardback photo albums. But be sure to order more than one so you'll be able to one day hand that over to your child. Please contact Sean Sims with TrueVine Photography at 610-428-6469. That's 610-428-6469. Or contact him at TrueVinePhoto.com. Again, TrueVinePhoto.com to reserve your date. Please hurry, time is running out.
Planning the wedding is easy. Staying married takes hard work. Christian Talk Therapy's premarital counseling series is 5 intensive 2-hour sessions designed to give you the truth about marriage, show you the biblical plan for marriage, and teach you how to work the plan. Our premarital counseling is different from what you receive from your pastor and church. We tailor your premarital counseling series to address the specific needs of your relationship. We help you identify issues that may present a challenge in your marriage, and we help you work through them. We ensure that your marriage is built on a God-centered foundation. At the end of the 5-session series, you will receive a certificate of completion. Call today to schedule your consultation. Christian Talk Therapy, 215 215-375-7879, extension 44, 215-375-7879, extension 44, or please visit us at ChristianTalkTherapy.com. That is ChristianTalkTherapy.com. Planning the wedding is easy. We want you to plan to stay married.
Dayspring Counseling Services provides individual and group counseling services to adults, children, and couples. If you're feeling down, tired, depressed, if you struggle with anxiety or just stress, if it seems as though you're just coping with loss after loss, and if you're having trouble in your relationships and within your family, call one of our therapists today and set up an appointment. It may be helpful to you and your loved ones to seek help. Dayspring Counseling Services has locations in Bala Cynwyd, Exton, and Paoli, and our therapists can assist you with various problems in your life. Contact us today on the web at www.dayspringpa.com. Again, www.dayspringpa.com, or call us at 610-363-2088. Dayspring Counseling Services, helping to bring light into the lives of others. And we're back. You are listening to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia. And if you are just joining us, I am Dr. Suzette Sims, licensed psychologist and owner-director of Dayspring Counseling Services. And I am co-hosting with Sophia Avery, a Christian therapist and owner of Christian Talk Therapy. To make an appointment, please visit our websites. There's dayspringpa.com, again, dayspringpa.com, or christiantalktherapy.com, christiantalktherapy.com. Today, we are discussing accepting reality. What do we do when we really want something or someone and God says no? If you have ever struggled with the time that you asked God for something, if you had some wish or desire and He told you no, please call in now and let us know how you managed to accept His no in your life. Call us now. Our call-in number is 610-277-9449. That's 610-277-9449. And in New Jersey and Delaware at 1-800-887-9627. 800-887-9627. And you can also listen in online at mygospelhighway11.com. So we are talking about no, Sophia.
Oh, my goodness. No, Lord, please don't say no. How many times have we dreaded even asking God for something because we feared that He would say no? Mm-hmm. That sometimes is our biggest fear. I think it's a faith issue, though, because I've run into a lot of people who just could not stand the disappointment. And they felt like, I prayed for my mother to be healed or my father to be healed or my grandparents, and they didn't. They didn't survive whatever illness they were going through. And, now I believe that if I pray, God's not going to hear me anyway. That's what I hear all the time. So a lot of people fear praying and asking God for anything because they fear His no.
Yeah.
Now, how do we deal with the disappointment and the pain of not getting what we want? How do we deal with that disappointment and pain? Okay.
Well, right now, Sophia, we have Lisa who's calling in on line 1. Hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for calling.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I actually am going through having to adjust to a lot of new things in my life. The main thing is I've had problems with my vision. It's gotten worse, and it's now a quote-unquote disability. And the change has been very rapid. Like in the last year and a half, I've had to make major adjustments, like legally not being able to drive anymore, needing assistance through Social Security. I'm a client of, and sometimes it was even hard for me to say, the department is blind and visual services, and I couldn't get the word blind out. I would always say visual service department, And it's been really, really hard, and I keep trying to kind of put that round peg in the square hole or whatever they call it, and I keep trying to do things I used to do, and I just simply can't. I need help, but it's just so hard to just surrender and say, okay, this is where I am. You know, I have to use these aids. I have to change this. I have to stop driving. But it's just been it's been the hardest thing. And then also I just turned 50. And, you know, I look at myself and just like Sophia said, like, how did this happen? You know, I thought I was going to be young and tiny and, you know, cute my whole life. But, you know, so it's been really hard just kind of accepting and just resting, like, okay, this is my new phase. This is where I am. So what do you do?
Wow. Well, Lisa, it definitely sounds like you are struggling with a lot of transitions in your life right now. You're dealing with a lot of change, and a lot of changes related to, you know, expectations that you weren't expecting. You know, you expected to have your sight. You expected to be cute your whole life, like you said. You expected maybe to do other things before you turned 50. And for one thing, I just want to say thank you so much for just having the courage to call in and share with us and our listeners just what your struggle is and what you're going through. And, you know, one of the things that may be helpful is looking into the Word and seeing what it is that God does say to you about Him being there for you and how it is that He can bring you comfort. And that's one of the things that happens, you know, when we are struggling with something that we're not expecting, is just learning or figuring out how do we even get comfort through all that, because like you said, it's a very difficult adjustment, and even being able to formulate the words to accept your reality can be really, really difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I do appreciate you calling. You're a first caller. We appreciate you reaching out. And I think when we think about things like losing our eyesight or losing our ability to walk or losing our, you know, something related to our health, we do kind of wonder, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? And I think we have to look at and believe and trust in the fact that God has a plan for your life. I remember when my mother got sick and had cancer. She had cancer of the spine and had a stroke at her spine, so she was paralyzed. And I, you know, certainly went through the why me, Lord? Why my mother? Why did this happen to me? And what I realized as I got, you know, of age is that if God hadn't sat my mother down, you know, my mother played, you know, she was a church musician and she did a lot of things. She was active in the church, and she went to, she taught school for years. And if it hadn't been for him sitting her down, she would have never been able to write the tracts and have a tract ministry and minister to people. So I would say, instead of looking at what you're losing, look at what you're gaining. Mm-hmm. You know, instead of looking at it as a disability, look at it as a change. What is God preparing you for? How does this gift you for something else that you might not have done? You know, now you're forced to step out of what the path that you were walking and to be on this new path. And God has a plan for you on this new path. You just have to be open to discover what it is. He still loves you just like he loved you all along. What is his plan for you on this new path?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for calling in. And, you know, we really appreciate you sharing your story with us. And that really takes us to exactly what it is that we were going to be focusing on, which is, you know, what do we do when God tells us no? And, you know, along the lines of what Sophia was saying, we have to keep in mind that God is going to do right, that God's will is the right thing that is going to be done, and we have to keep that in mind. And also that God's ways are not our ways. You know, he tells us, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, and neither are my ways your ways. And so he thinks differently than we do. And for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Isaiah 55:8-9. And so God sees the world and sees our lives from beginning to end. He does not just step in the middle of where we are and say, okay, well, based on where you are today, this is what should happen next. No, he has seen you since before you were born, and he will see you once you die and cross over. And Lisa, for you, he knew when he created you that that was his intention for your life and for your sight. He knew that for you. And that's really, really difficult to embrace that and to consider that. But as a little kid, even as a little kid that created those ideas and those plans for your life, God already knew what was in store for you. And that's where having that faith and that trust that he loves you and he is going to take care of you, even through the loss of your sight or even through the loss of whatever it is that any of us are grieving, that God is going to take care of us through that. And that's the difference between having faith in God and faith in yourself.
Right. And I think we have to keep that in mind, that God, whatever's happening to you, it's not taking him by surprise. He knew about it. He knew it was coming. And he has something better prepared for you if you are willing to receive it. I think about, I have run into people who envision themselves as being professional athletes, and they might have started playing a sport from the time they were 4 or 5 years old all the way through high school. They never never saw themselves as being anything but a professional football player or a professional basketball player. And when something happens and they don't make it to the pros, they have nothing, because they never envisioned a life without this sport. And I'm thinking, God has a plan for you still. Let him show you what life he has for you.
Right. And just like little kids, like if any of you out there have children, right? I have 4 kids. And so I know that there are going to be times that they want something that I know is just not right for them. And I'm going to tell them no. And, just like a kid, if they were to run into the street after the ball and then they say, well, I wanted the ball. That's like a great place for me to, there's nothing there, let me go get it. But as a parent, you don't just let your child run out into the street.
Right.
And when we consider God to be our heavenly Father, we have to keep in mind that he knows what's best for us. And we have to trust that, even through the disappointment of not getting what it is that we want.
Absolutely. And we just have to, allow his will to rule in our lives and work on trusting him as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. And, the other thing to keep in mind is that sometimes a no could be a yes. It just is just sort of being grown or it's just in waiting. And that takes us to that whole idea of having to wait. But sometimes a no in the moment could actually be a yes in the future if you wait it out long enough.
Right. And the wait is the thing I think that causes us the most pain in our relationship with God, when he tells us to wait. Oh, Lord. I think that's what we should talk about in our next segment.
I think that you're right about that.
Okay.
Well, you are listening to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia. And if you are listening to us and you have any questions or comments, you can call in at 610-277-9449. Again, 610-277-9449. And in New Jersey and Delaware, 1-800-887-9627. And as we were talking about, many of us struggle when God says no, but trusting him with our life and our future should help us accept his ways and his plans that are better than our plans for ourselves. So remember, give us a call here at the station with your questions and comments. And you don't have to give a name. You can be anonymous if you'd like. But we will be right back after this break. This is Dr. Suzette, and you're listening to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia here on Gospel Highway 11. Don't miss this next segment. We will be right back. Are you feeling down, tired, or depressed? Do you feel stressed or anxious? Does it seem as though you are coping with loss after loss? Dayspring Counseling Services can help. If you have thought counseling might help you or someone you care about, contact Dayspring Counseling Services at www.dayspringpa.com. That's dayspringpa.com. Or you can call us at 610-363-2088 and we can get in contact with you. Don't wait another day to get help. With locations in Bala Cynwyd, Exton, and Paoli, our therapists can assist you with various problems in your life. Contact us today on the web at dayspringpa.com or at 610-363-2088.
888. Dayspring Counseling Services, helping to bring light into the lives of others.
Marriage can be difficult. If you're not happy, don't wait until it's too late. Get counseling. Many couples try to work things out themselves. Not the best idea, because you don't know what you don't know. Call us at Christian Talk Therapy and invest in your marriage. Stop the suffering. Don't wait until it's too late. Call today to make your appointment for marriage counseling. And if your spouse won't come, you can come alone, and with God's help, we can help you make changes to improve your marriage. Make your appointment for marriage counseling today. Call 215-375-7879, extension 44, or make your appointment online at ChristianTalkTherapy.com. Don't wait until it's too late. And we're back. I'm Sister Sophia, and you're listening to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia. If you're just joining us, we are discussing accepting reality, and we are available to answer your questions live during the show. Our call-in number is 610-277-9449 in New Jersey and Delaware, 1-800-887-9627. You can also listen online at mygospelhighway11.com. And if you have Facebook, if you could go to our Facebook page, simply go to facebook.com/Philly Talk Show, and we will be able to answer your questions during the day, and hopefully maybe even get some of your questions online. So today we're discussing accepting reality. We've already talked about what to do when God says yes. If it's something we like, we're happy. If it's something that we don't want to do, we are very unhappy. Mm-hmm. And what do we do if God says no? We believe that then he has something better for you.
Yeah.
And we have to work on trusting him and believing him. Don't worry about prayers that weren't answered in the past. Just press on, believing that he has his best for you and he wants the best for you.
Right. We have to accept the fact that sometimes God says no. And sometimes he does call us to suffer if that is his plan for us. And I'm just thinking about Jesus when he was in the garden before he died, and he prayed and he asked God, "Hey, can you take this from me?" He didn't want to do it.
He said no.
Right. And then Jesus' prayer turned to, "Well, thy will be done."
Right.
You know, he put out there what he wanted. And then he revised that and say, "Okay, Lord, well, your will be done."
And I wonder how many of our listeners have gone through that type of journey where we said, Lord, please, take this away. And he didn't. Mm-hmm. Do we have anybody who's ever gotten to the point of saying, okay, well, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done? If you have, give us a call at 610-277-9449 in New Jersey and Delaware, 1-800-887-9627. Mm-hmm. Now, Suzette, I want to bring up the one thing that I think causes the most pain in my clients.
What's that?
Waiting on the Lord. I asked one of my groups, Changing Women Christian Fellowships, like, how long is it between the time that you pray and the time that you start suffering? At one point, does your waiting become suffering? Ah. I got answers. One of the ones that really kind of caused me to pause was one day. One of my people said one day, if I pray today and the Lord hasn't answered me and delivered what I wanted by the next day, then I'm suffering.
Ah, that's part of that microwave society you had mentioned last week.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
The microwave society.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even our expectations of God answering are a little bit warped now. You know, we want everything now. So what is a reasonable amount of time for us to wait before we start suffering? I don't know if there is one. You know, if we look to the Bible, we have Abraham and Sarah, and my girls in Great Expectations say, Lord, don't talk about Abraham and Sarah. I am not trying to hear waiting for 25 years. I am 30 and I want to have children. I'm not trying to run behind a child at 55. Please don't mention Abraham and Sarah. Okay. So maybe Abraham and Sarah is not an example I will mention again. But, we have to be able to give God time to work things out in our lives. When I have people come to me in marital distress, and, some of them are already separated, some of them have already filed for divorce by the time they come to me. Don't wait that long. But when they come to me, I say, well, you know what? God needs time to work things out in your marriage. We need to wait.
Yeah.
And they say, well, what do you have in mind when you say wait? And I'm thinking, well, legally in the state of Pennsylvania, an uncontested divorce can go for 2 years before it'll be granted. So let's give God 2 years. Say, oh, Lord, no, that's not going to happen. Thank you for your time. I'm out. And that's the type of response I get. Why won't we give God a chance to work it out? Waiting allows you to grow in your faith and trust in God. What's the Bible say? They that wait on the Lord shall what? Renew their strength. So if you're waiting, then this is me. I do it too. If I'm waiting on God and I'm depressed and I'm sad and I'm downtrodden and I'm hopeless and feeling helpless, are you waiting on God? No. A lot of times you're waiting on that thing or that person and focusing on them more than you're focusing on God. If you're waiting on the Lord, you should be mounting up on wings like eagles, right? You should be growing stronger in your faith and stronger in your resolve. One of the things that I have instituted in Great Expectations, actually, I started Great Expectations, but a friend, Kim Upshaw, facilitates it. But one of the things that I have the women in Great Expectations doing is, if you're believing God for a marriage, we need time to prepare. So in order for us to prepare for our husband, we're going to have to wait. So either you wait patiently and enjoy knowing that God has something coming for you and you're preparing for it, or you can wait and be depressed and sad and anxious and tired and suffering. There's 2 ways to wait, and hopeless.
Yeah.
So either we're hopeful as we wait, which is what we kind of insist on in Grateful Expectations, or we're hopeless. Mm-hmm. And that's when you're looking at that thing or that person and thinking they're not moving fast enough.
Well, today we're talking about acceptance, and you're listening to Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia here on How's That Working For You? And if you have struggled with a time that you've asked God for something and the answer was no or wait, let us know how it is that you handled that. Let us know how it is you managed to accept that wait or that no. And our call-in number is 610-277-9449, or in New Jersey and Delaware, 1-800-887-9627. And, well, Sophia, along that line, of talking about waiting and giving God an opportunity, sometimes we have this idea that we have to know God's plan first. Like, before I can decide that I'm going to kind of go along with the plan, God, you have to reveal to me what that plan is first.
How's that working for you?
How is that working for you? But we do that. We don't decide that we're going to sign on until it is clear to us what it is that God wants from us first. And that is not the way that God works, right? So even in that example of Jesus, even the Son doesn't tell the Father what to do. So how do we think that we then have the authority to let God know what we want and what our expectation is of him, and then he's just supposed to answer us just because we want him to answer us now? That's not how your faith grows. Your faith does not grow when you ask for something and you get it right away. Your faith grows as a result of being without for a while, and then God bringing you through that time when there wasn't any other resource available. And I can speak from myself. Like, I have learned in my life that when there is nothing else and nowhere else to go, the only thing that ever gets me through is God. And as a result, when I am then faced with things that create fear in my life, and if I'm grieving something, I remember those times in my life when I struggled the hardest. And then that then brings me joy, because I know that God is the one that that brought me through it. So for you guys out there listening, you want to just keep in mind that if you don't know where you're going, but God is sovereign overall and he knows everything, well, that's when we need to be doing exactly what it is that he's telling us to do, because he already knows the beginning and the end. And so you want to keep that in mind. When you feel lost and you feel confused and you're not exactly sure what to do, remember that God does know. And that is the time that you can then submit to his will, because he does know what's best for you. He is going to do what is right. His ways are not our ways. Everything that God does is in line with the laws that he created in the universe, right? So even the laws of the universe, like gravity and, all these other things, they were created by him. And if it's all in alignment, everything is going to be done according to his will.
Absolutely. And we just have to keep in mind that he knows where we're going. You get in the back seat. It's a limo. Let God drive the car. You stop worrying about where we going. I don't know where he's taking me. I don't know if I want to go there. You stop. When you were a little kid, you hopped back in that little car seat and sat your behind right back there. You didn't know where your mom was going.
But you trusted her.
Right.
You trusted you were going to get to your destination.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Get your behind in the car seat. Mm-hmm. Strap yourself in and pull out your DVD player and watch a movie. You stop worrying about where God's taking you. He's taking you where you need to go.
Right. And you know what? Along with that, though, is prayer should not be an attempt to manipulate God into you getting what it is that you want. You can't manipulate the will of God. And just because you ask for it today does not mean that he is going to give it to you tomorrow because you know all the Bible scriptures and you can recount how great you are. If it is not according to his plan in your life and what is best for you and where you are going to be sharpened and strengthened for those moments in your life in the future when you need it, you just really have to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And we have to keep in mind that God has it all under control. Just wait. And be okay with waiting, because if he gave you the thing you wanted right now, you probably wouldn't know what to do with it. You're probably not ready. So prepare yourself while you're waiting. Study to show yourself approved for this blessing. Mm-hmm. God's not going to buy you a new car if you don't have your driver's license.
And it's funny because that's something I tell my husband all the time, because he says, I used to have a crush on you. And I say, you know what? If we would have gotten together back then, it would not have worked out because you were not ready.
Exactly.
All right. You were not exactly what I needed, and I wasn't what you needed either.
And you might have messed it up. So
right.
Just let God handle it. He has it all under control. Now, you're listening to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia on Gospel Highway 11. If you are available or near a phone, we'd love to hear your comments and questions. Our call-in number is 610-277-9449 in New Jersey and Delaware, 1-800-887-9627. I hope you are able to go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Philly Talk Show. We would love to hear your comments and questions, and we look forward to interacting with you. We are talking today about accepting reality. When we come back from this break, we'll be talking about radical acceptance, how to accept life and reality without blinking and move forward. This is Sophia Avery, Gospel Highway 11. We'll be right back.
Do you have a child or relative preparing for their junior or senior prom this year? If so, wouldn't you like to have photos that would last a lifetime of that event? While you're shopping for your daughter's dress and shoes or your son's suit, while you're preparing the menu and booking their limo reservations, why not consider having a professional photographer photograph that special day? With True Vine Photography's pre-prom packages, you'll be able to recall that day weeks, months, and even years from now with one of their professional hardback photo albums. But be sure to order more than one so you'll be able to one day hand that over to your child. Please contact Sean Sims with True Vine Photography at 610-428-6469. That's 610-428-6469. Or contact him at truevinephoto.com. Again, truevinephoto.com to reserve your date. Please hurry, time is running out.
Christian Talk Therapy is a place where healing happens. Here at Christian Talk Therapy, we understand how hard it can be to open up and talk to someone else about your personal issues. But despite the uneasiness, it's much harder to keep living with emotional pain, frustration, and sadness. We hope that you'll take the first step and contact us on the web at christiantalktherapy.com or by phone at 215-375-7879, extension 44. Schedule your first appointment. Call us today and start getting your healing.
Dayspring Counseling Services provides individual and group counseling services to adults, children, and couples. If you are having problems setting limits or communicating with your child or teen, if you feel disconnected in your marriage or relationship, or if you need direction with your career, Dayspring is here to help. With convenient locations in Bala Cynwyd, Exton, and Paoli, our therapists will provide the support and professional guidance you need. Contact us on the web at dayspringpa.com or by phone at 610-363-2088. Again, our web address is www.dayspringpa.com or our phone number 610-363-2088. Dayspring Counseling Services, helping to bring light into the lives of others. Don't wait another day to get help.
And we are back. You are listening to How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia. If you're just joining us, I'm Dr. Suzette Sims, licensed psychologist and owner and director of Dayspring Counseling Services. And my co-host is Sophia Avery, Christian therapist and owner of Christian Talk Therapy. Go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Philly Talk Show, and we can respond to your questions and comments. And also give us a call. You've been through some things, and we all know you've been through some stuff. You've asked some questions. You've prayed to God, and He's told you no. Call us. Let us know what that was like for you. How did you handle it? How did you cope? 610-277-9449. Again, 277-9449. And in New Jersey and Delaware, 1-800-887-9627. Give us a call. We are talking about accepting reality. And one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about is a concept called radical acceptance. It has to do with learning how to turn your mind around, like refocusing yourself on something else and receiving what it is that God has for you versus what you want and desire for yourself. A lot of times we hold on to the idea of who we think we're supposed to be, but we don't always embrace who we are. We have these expectations of what our life is supposed to be like, and who's supposed to be in our life, and how old we're supposed to be when we get married, and if we get married, and how many kids we're supposed to have. And so that can keep us from accepting our place in our life. And a lot of times we say, well, I want to be more Christ-like. I want to be more of what God wants me to be, but what are you willing to sacrifice to be more like Christ? What that means is that you're going to have to carry your own burden. That means you can't look for your life to necessarily be different than maybe what it is right now in this moment. You have to think about, okay, today is Friday. What is going on in my life today at this moment that I need to accept or embrace so that I can figure out how to move forward more effectively and maybe without depression or anxiety, but instead feeling joy and happiness. And so, a lot of times, like we've been talking about, we have these disappointments that come up and grief and loss and hopelessness and things like that. And we don't want to keep holding on to this idea of who we think we're supposed to be and not embracing who we are.
Okay, Suzette, I'm sure we can give a lot of answers, but right now we have Renee, our caller, on the phone on line 1. Renee, this is How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia. Can we have your comment or question?
Yes, this is Renee, and I was calling to ask you a question. This is something that I've been dealing with for a long time in my life, and I just want to get your perspective on how I should handle this situation. I've been wanting to be married my whole life. I'm 51 now, and it seems God is saying no. And I've accepted that to a certain degree because I'm accepting whatever he allows in my life. But well-meaning friends, I love them, they tell me, no, you must have faith. God wants you to have the desires of your heart. And I want to know your perspective on that. Should I have more faith? Should I wait until God guides me in a certain way and then step into those opportunities? Or should I just, accept what God is allowing and just be patient and just wait? And I'll hang up and just listen to your responses.
Well, thank you so much, Renee, for your call and for sharing with us what it is that you're going through. And you know what, Renee? What you are talking about echoes probably what a lot of our listeners are dealing with right now. And what some of that is, I'm at this place where I've accepted it, but here are well-meaning people that are giving me other advice and telling me other things. And then what that does is it creates a confusion for us of what it is we're supposed to do and how it is that we're supposed to handle it. And you're talking about accepting the fact that you're not married yet, and it is something that you've wanted. But you know what? You can accept the reality of what's happening without necessarily deciding that you're done living. And what I mean by that is you mentioned that, should I take these opportunities to maybe go these places or meet people? And you didn't say that specifically, but why not? I mean, God isn't necessarily going to come to your door. Hey, Renee, I got somebody for you to meet right here, right? But what he is going to do is he is going to place people in your life in different positions in your life as a result of the relationships that you create. And if you make a decision that, God has decided that this is his will for my life, well, you know what? That might be the case today, but you don't know exactly what that will is for your life. Only he knows. And if you don't put yourself in positions to possibly be able to meet people that may give you that desire of your heart, well, then you could be getting in the way, so to speak, of your own blessing. And that God has an ability to have you interact with people that you may not have ever met before in your life had it not been for one particular circumstance or the other. So by all means, what I would say to you is just live. Make that decision that you're going to live, and make that decision to do those things that do bring you those joys in your life, while at the same time just turning that part of your life and those desires over to God. And then just learning how to, in that moment of that day, not grieve not having a husband, but embracing whatever those other joys are that he has placed in your view and in your path for that day. A lot of times when we start looking backwards at what we don't have, we totally miss out on appreciating and recognizing the blessing in what we do have.
Absolutely. And, we have to be careful about deciding it's over before God said it was over. Now, if you prayed and said, Lord, is it your will that I not be married? And he said, yes, then you have reason to move on to whatever his will is for you. But if he has not said, Renee, it is not in my will for you to be married, then why do we assume that just because it hasn't happened yet means it's not going to happen at all? We have to be careful about our faith and waiting. At what point do you give up trusting and believing God to answer your prayer? At what point do you give up on God? That's a good question. At what point do you give up and say, okay, he's not going to do it?
Right.
That's he's not doing it in your timing or the way that you envisioned it happening. Maybe, like I said, he has a whole different path on you. He's just waiting on you to step off of your intentions. But sometimes we're so downtrodden because we haven't got married, or we don't have a child yet, or we don't have the marriage that we envisioned. We get so downtrodden, we figure God's never going to fix this marriage, so I may as well stop thinking that it's going to be any better and suck it up and go to church every day.
Right. Yeah.
But we have to be, hopeful in our hearts. I don't care how long it is. God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ask or think. But do you believe that? Mm-hmm. Right? As Jesus used to say when he was healing people, you're healed according to your faith.
And are your prayers being prayed with faith behind them.
Right. Because if we pray, we have to believe that God is able and willing to answer those prayers. Certainly praying for a husband, Renee, is in the will of God. It is. You don't have to ask him. If the desires in your heart is in his will, just move forward and let him give you whoever he wants. Now, that's another place we have to be careful. Being scared he's not going to give us what we want. We have to be open to whatever.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? Acceptance doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist. Acceptance doesn't mean that there are going to be times that you feel lonely, right? Because you don't have that person there. But accepting the reality of a situation does not mean that you aren't acknowledging that, hey, here's this thing that I'm having a difficult time with. You know, and acceptance doesn't mean, just like, you know, Sophia was just saying, it doesn't mean you just resign to it and decide that, oh, well, it's over, right? 50 is not 99. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are only 50. There are so many people that start businesses at 50 or just have a first marriage at 50. And heck, sometimes there are women that have children at 50, right? Not to mention Sarah.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you just resign to that. And the other thing is, you know what, sometimes God tells you no because you got to avoid some evil or infirmity or some problem that is going to cause in your life. And, you know, like we were talking about earlier, maybe that person that God created for you, if we're talking specifically about marriage, maybe that person isn't where they need to be yet. And in order for them to be able to meet you where you are and fill your gaps and your needs, they need to then work on those pieces and parts of themselves so that they can be the perfect fit to help balance the relationship out.
Right. And you'll be getting yourself ready. You know, we have to study to prepare ourselves. Do you understand marriage? Have you studied it? Have you taken any classes? Have you bought any books? Have you done any workshops? Are you prepared for the sacrifices and service that are required in marriage? Are you prepared to give up your comfort zone and the things that you enjoy? You might have to, and definitely will have to, submit to your husband. Are you ready to submit to your husband? So if you haven't received it yet, check yourself. Have you prepared?
Right. Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that I do want to just talk about briefly, because we're almost at the end of time, is just this idea of radical acceptance and how it is that we accept what it is that God's will is for our life. And thank you so much, Renee, for calling and allowing us an opportunity to sow a little bit into your life. You know, but radical acceptance is a freedom from fighting reality. You get to now accept what is from within. And accepting things doesn't always feel good. And it might mean tolerating pain. And pain is part of that life struggle or the life blessing that God gave us, because through our suffering, that is then what helps us define our relationship with God. And it allows Him an opportunity to then do a work in our life that is then solely because of Him that we got through it. So it's through our struggle and our suffering that God is then glorified. So the acceptance of reality is going to free you up from using all these other resources that you need in order to deal with the reality and just move forward. So you want to just keep turning your mind back to accepting what is going on in your life and saying, you know what, despite this pain in my body, I love and accept myself for where I am, and I'm going to trust and have faith that God does hear me and that there is something else going on besides just the struggle I'm going through. So you want to accept what's going on as a reality of life.
Until next week, I'm Sister Sophia.
And I'm Dr. Suzette.
And this is How's That Working For You? Be blessed and have a great day.
And be happy.
Thank you for joining us today. The information we discussed today is not a substitute for professional counseling. If you'd like to talk to a professional counselor, you can contact us at 215-375-7879, extension 11. That's 215-375-7879, extension 11.
Or you can visit Sister Sophia at ChristianTalkTherapy.com. That's ChristianTalkTherapy.com. talktherapy.com.
And you can also reach Dr. Suzette at dayspringpa.com. That's dayspringpa.com. Or find us on Facebook at How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia.
Join us next week on How's That Working For You with Dr. Suzette and Sister Sophia on Fridays at 1 p.m. on Gospel Highway 11.